Hello, everybody. I'm Mario, and I'm the enthusiastic developer in this duo. We have to start off with a random fact. My random fact is that I actually visited a dried out accumulation lake last weekend, and it's funny. It has all of those cracks in the ground. It's like you're walking on scorched earth, like you came into a Mad Max movie or something. So that was really cool and really an amazing thing. And we almost decided not to go, but then we ended up doing it, and it was so amazing. And another cool fact about it is the places which are completely dried out are completely dried out indeed, and you can walk all over them. But then there are places that are not dried out 100% yet, and then you actually fall into them like into mud and like into quicksand, or like what I imagine quicksand would look like, and you can't really get out. So you like keep sinking, and then it's a weird feeling to sink like that, not knowing how far you'll sink. So yeah, that was really fun and a really cool experience. If you have a chance to do it sometime, somewhere, do it.
That's one of my fears. I think it was from Flash Gordon, or in some movie where some
Yep.
guy like just goes into quicksand. I was like, yeah, no, 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 fuck that. Anyway, hi everybody. My name is Tom. I'm the designer in the duo. And a quick random fact is, so yesterday I went riding on my motorcycle and I had to uh, fill up my tires with air. So I did it on a gas station. And unlike in Croatia where air is free, I had to pay for air in London, and that was so weird, paying for air. Like, I know I'm paying for the service and for the thing to be there and blah blah blah, but I already gassed my car, like I'm using your services anyway. But it was so weird to give 50 pence for 5 minutes of air, and it was kind of strangely dystopian feeling, where it's like on that movie with Schwarzenegger on Mars. It's like, oh yeah, you have 13 minutes of air credits left. You
Supposedly, supposedly you can buy bottles of fresh mountain air from Velebit, somewhere around Velebit Mountain.
it was just a matter of time when someone's gonna bottle up air. Um, like that's an effort. I don't know.
On the other hand, supposedly this is a thing in UK. We don't have it yet, but like on big festivals, you get those bottles of pure oxygen, which kind of you like buy them at a bar, and then you get a buzz, and it kind of gives you a small buzz, like you're a little bit high.
Okay, that's weird. I know that there are, let's call them content creators on the OF platform that bottle up their farts and sell them for a lot of money. Uh, so,
How do you get to those? A friend sent you a link, right?
oh no, I actually subscribed to a couple of creators that I just I don't know. It was shared somewhere. I don't know. But the thing is, there was this a person who did that and bought a penthouse in Manhattan just on that. So there's obviously a need for it. Um, I don't know.
There's obviously a need for it.
Yeah, like if the
Like,
market exists, like I don't know. It's not my cup of tea or my bag of farts or whatever. But
so if there is a God, he needs to do like smitten everybody again, and then we need to start from cockroaches one more time because apparently somewhere along the way evolution failed us.
I think we learned long ago that God does not care, even if he exists. So who cares? Uh,
Maybe he's just eating popcorn, and like watching. Look what stupid thing they're gonna do now.
I'm trying really hard not to get into my personal philosophy about religion now. So,
Let's not do that.
but yeah, God
Let's
eating
get to
popcorn. That would be. There's a bunch of memes going around. I don't know if you've seen that, where it's like God talking to an angel and like God creating dogs, and have you seen those? It's like a
no.
conversation between a god and their and whatever the creation is. It's like God creates a dog, and it's like, oh my god, this is amazing! Like you're gonna be man's best friend, and the dog is like, man's? Isn't that a little bit sexist? And you cannot talk. And it's like wolf, and like oh, and chocolate kills you. So there's like a bunch of those I've seen. It's so it's like or like a god talking to an angel, like what are they doing? Making fucking milk out of almonds. Well, I give them animals that give milk. Well, they don't like that milk. They don't like that milk. Yeah. Anyway, Mario, introduce the topic for today. We
The
do have a
topic for
topic.
today is completely
We promise we do have a topic. We do.
yeah, and it is going to be relevant to the IT industry as opposed to
Oh,
some of
a little.
our
Well, you
sidelines.
said, well, you and I keep saying the word IT industry. We keep saying the IT industry, and I had a conversation recently from with someone from here, and the feedback was that when we say IT in the Western business world, IT means people who do like tech support and uh, assemble your computer. And
Okay,
when we talk about development and design, it's not IT industry, it's tech industry. So it's Silicon Valley
tech
is tech
industry.
industry, not IT industry. IT industry is Microsoft support call centers in Eastern India. That's IT industry. Developing, doing software, tech industry. So we should re.
Please don't be racist. Microsoft has tech support centers in Western India as well.
Yeah, I'm not racist. It's just I know where it's located on the map. It's just that, but it's so when we say IT industry, and my feedback, my response was that growing up in Croatia, we don't have a word for tech industry. IT means everything is IT, so we have to start saying tech industry, not IT industry.
In that case, we do have a topic relevant to the tech industry, and it's actually scope creep. For those of you who don't know, scope creep is what happens when you agree with your client on something, you give an estimate on project based, and then that client says, yeah, but this, I also thought that this would be included. So the fact that somebody also thought that something is going to be included and is within the price, and or it is reasonable to expect that this would be included, or this is assumed, or of course this has to be done within the price, that some of those things are scope creeps. So scope creeps are the things that you end up doing within the price without them being prearranged. And the topic for today is about how they happen, why they happen, how to avoid them, and how to fight them, and how not to get frustrated about them.
You want to go first? I'm sure you have a fuckload of examples just like me. So
I do have a fuckload of examples, but
let's solve the issue first of not the scope creeps, but actually agreeing and not agreeing on things. And this is an easy fix, I think, for anyone who has an issue with this. Everything that's written down is agreed upon. Everything that's not written down does not exist. So if it's not on a piece of paper or an email or whatever, we did not agree upon it. And then it's up to you to communicate to your client, look, we didn't agree this, so it does not exist. So we need to either account for it in terms of money, in terms of the duration of a project, and just communicate properly. That's the easy part. The scope creep is the hard part.
that's the easy part. On the other hand, there has never been a specification detailed enough that everything is written down, nor will there be ever a specification detailed enough that it's written down. A specification that is accurate enough to properly define what a software does exists, and it's called code. So everything else is an approximation. And this is fine, and this is unavoidable, and this is completely normal. However, when the two parties are discussing what's about to happen, then they need to have, and this is something we've addressed in previous episodes, they need to have a clear, honest, and direct channel of communication. So what does that mean? It means that if we say that the system, any system that we're building, is going to have users. Whenever a system is going to have users, then it's the job of two parties to define what those users are. And if your client is non-technical, they will just say, yeah, we have some users and they can do this, and this. However, if you're a software vendor or a design vendor or something, then you have to ask, okay, stop. How does that user log in? Do they log in using their own email and password? Do they log in using third account provider like Google, like Facebook, like Twitter login and things like that? If they log in using their own, do they have two-factor authentication? If they do have two-factor authentication, how do we send them SMS verifications? How do we send them email verifications? How do we do that? there are users. Okay, do users have roles? If users have roles, what can each role do? If users have role, do we need admin interface to define which user can do what, or do we have an admin interface that defines which role can do which action and things like that? And therefore, your authentication system can be anything from an out-of-the-box implementation that pretty much any framework has nowadays to something that takes 2 months to develop, you know. So, and again, your client might not be technical. Your client might be an expert in their own business niche and know what they're doing in their business niche. And they can tell you, we need users, and just go on. It's your job to understand or to think about how those users are going to be implemented and ask a bunch of questions. And this is why in my project, when somebody tells me, you know, they give me a specification in, you know, 5 bullet points and say, how much is this going to take? I never say how much it's going to take. I get them on a call, because telling them, or, you know, I can say something like it's going to take between 2 months and 3 years. Then they're like, what do you mean? And then we get on a call and discuss it. Because if you spend more time defining what you're going to do, it's going to be easier for you to get a more accurate estimate from your end, and then a more accurate price from your end. I don't know if the same thing applies to design.
I have a great story about one client that did this, and I will omit all the names. It doesn't matter where it happened. But I got on a project as a designer for a product called a simple database app. Okay, and this was the description. We are building an app that will help people find out what of their medication or food or anything they're doing on a daily basis is affecting their ailment or some sort of condition that they have, like pre-existing condition. Because as you know, sometimes diet can affect certain, like psoriasis can be affected by what you consume and whatever. So it was an idea that was very solid. It came from a TED talk about a person who tracked everything in their Excel sheet. So guys said, okay, this makes sense. People have a clear need for this. We're going to build this, right? So I was onboarded to a project as a designer to help design a product. And I'm speaking to a client, and he says, yes, we're going to collect all of the user information, like you said, log in. And when user logs in, he will then say what type of, like who they are, what they are, like a man, woman, tall, short, weight, height, all of the things that go into what type of ailment they have, is a skin condition or whatever, it doesn't matter. And then they're going to track on a daily basis what they're doing. And then the database is going to tell them what is the problem. And my question was, cool, how is the database going to tell them? Like, what do you mean? Like, well, they're going to input it into database, and then the database is going to give them an answer. And I started laughing, thinking that the guy is like joking, and he's like, no, like we're gonna tell the database. And mind you, this was some 8 years ago or something like that. So I say, you're aware that we cannot have a conversation with the database. We are now entering an era where we actually might gonna have, we will be able to do that. We are now almost there. The guy was ahead of his time for sure, but he thought, and he was a non-technical person, and God bless him, he was a great person to talk to, but he was very non-technical. And his perception of how a human interfaces with a computer came from Star Trek. So it was like, you tell it, and then he tells you back, right? It's like, I'm going to tell the computer, and the computer's going to tell me back. What is a computer? Well, it's a database. So whatever. It's a database that's going to tell me. And it was a 2-week project, right? So I was like, dude, this is not going to be a 2-week, and you need a developer. Like, I'm more than happy to design your branding and design your product and do all the screens, and I can work with a developer to help him understand what the product is. But it's going to take me a couple of months just to grasp everything and build it properly. And then, I don't know, God knows how long it's going to take for a developer. And he was like, yeah, sure. Okay, let's onboard a developer. I brought in a guy that I think is one of the best developers that I know. And he's an amazing guy. And I said, like, yeah, this is a client that needs your help. And they worked on the product for years. and I think he would have a lot to say about scope creep, because what started as a simple database project morphed into this weird product that the guy was constantly adding stuff in, and like he paid for it. It was not a problem. I don't know where the money came from, but the money was coming in and he was paying for it, but he was constantly adding new features and new options, and changing the product and then rechanging it and remodeling it. And from what I understand, it took him years just to go live. I don't know how many, is it still alive, what happens with it, but it was he wanted to build a product to make a lot of money, and in all of those years he spent on design and development, I think that if he just put that money in an S&P 500, he would be done. Like it would be way easier. But yeah, that was a funny story. And to answer your question, does this happen in design world? It does, but this, like you said, comes down to communication and people not communicating clearly what they need and what they think they want, and then service providers not understanding and not knowing to ask right questions. So the more experience you have, the better questions you ask, the better you understand the client. And I had this happen to me when I was younger. Of course, I was like, oh, we need a logo. Cool, I would build a logo. And where is our business card? Where is our, like, oh, well, you didn't say that. Well, we assume that you're gonna, like, okay. So I came to understand years later that all of the problems, majority of my problems in my professional career, came from incorrectly assuming a lot of stuff, and expecting from client as well, like, oh, they're gonna understand. So I think it's understandable that, so you think that something's understandable when it's not, and then you assume that someone's going to be aware of the things that you're aware, especially in the non-technical clients. So now I apologize in advance that if it sounds like I'm treating my client or person I'm talking to like an idiot, and I say, like, I don't want to come off as I'm treating you like an idiot, but I want to make sure that I say everything, that we don't miss anything. So if you know what I'm talking about, just let me know. I'm going to skip it and we're going to progress further. But I just want to go like 3 steps backwards, start at the basics, and just to make sure, because I found myself in conversations where I was talking about UX this and UI that and CX this and research that, and people were nodding away, and then a friend would pull me aside and say, like, they have no idea what UX is, and I was talking about some stuff. So yeah.
I have the same thing. I also put a disclaimer like, I'm sorry if this is like too low level, but just to make double sure that we're on the same page. I don't mean to insult you in any way, but did you mean
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Very nice.
exactly.
Now we're on the
I
same.
think that we could boil this down to a rule: whatever client says, you repeat it back to them, asking, like, "Is this what you meant? Is this sure?" And them confirming it, and then you know that you're on the same page. And what I do in this situation is also write it down, depending it's an online meeting or whatever we're doing, if we're recording or not. But just write it down and then send an email afterwards. And I know I said this numerous times before. Send an email. This is what we discussed. This is what I understand. This is what we are moving with forward. And please just reply, say yes, just so we are on the same page. So I have a written trail, so there's no backtracking later on. Like, oh, well, we meant this and you said that. No. Like, it's here.
I did a talk on a conference called Webcam Zagreb about debugging communication, where I literally spoke that my understanding of communication is that it happens in 4 steps. The first one is what you actually want to say. The second one is what you actually end up saying or communicating. The third one is what the other party ends up hearing. And the fourth is what they end up walking away with. And between each of those can be distortions, and based on how few distortions there are, your communication abilities are good. We're gonna put a link somewhere down there in the description or somewhere. So after you like, subscribe, say that we're awesome, share, tell your mothers and everything, you can take a look at it. It's about 20 minutes long, and I was honestly proud about it, and I think it can open up a few ways of thinking. So I strongly suggest of taking a look at it. It's helped me in my career a bit. I hope it'll help you. But basically, it comes down to this: make sure that both parties walk away from that conversation with the same thing in mind. And just to let you know, having amazing communication abilities, being the best in saying everything up front, saying everything is never going to stop scope creep. Scope creep will happen. What you have to do, you have to put in effort to try and minimize it. And what you do, you have to leave yourself buffer to accept a reasonable amount of it. And three, what you need to do is when it happens, address it immediately. So a thing that happened to me was I would be, working on a fixed base project, and then some scope creep will come in, and then we would say, okay, that part, we didn't talk about it, but it's just like a, few hours of work here and there, let's do it. And then we would do that on another thing. And then if you end up doing three things that are scope creeps without even raising attention, then when the fourth thing comes and you say, okay, now this is scope creep, we've already done that for you, then you're in a problem because you've like anchored the fact that you would be doing scope creep for free, which is not good. So whenever you get a scope creep, address it immediately. So say, okay, this is a feature we have not discussed. Just so you're aware, this is a feature that we have not discussed. I can show you that in the specification, but this is a feature. Then it's your decision if you want to tell them, okay, we're going to do it for free. We're going to do it because, we did this faster. We're going to do it because we want to keep a good relationship with you. We'll do this for free because we want to over-deliver and under-promise. But it has to be a conscious decision, and both parties need to be explicitly aware that it is scope creep.
Yep.
Otherwise, you are anchoring yourself into doing scope creep for free. So you can do scope creep for free, but make sure that both parties are aware of it and that the other party knows, okay, this is scope creep, but I am going to do it for you because I'm a really nice guy.
What I would also do,
Then I will know about the future scope creep requirements.
in that situation, when you're doing a scope creep, whatever it is for free, put it on an invoice or whatever you're delivering to your client for the work delivered. So there are things that you agreed on that are priced X, and then this is the new thing that you added, and you would account either for hours or whatever you're charging in, and then put in 100% discount. So they are aware that they got this for free, but make sure that they know how much it actually costs. So next time when it happens, you can say like, well, last time we gave you 100% discount. This time you don't get a discount, or you get a 50% discount. So they don't get in the habit of doing this shit because like you want to avoid people saying like, let's tell them 3 features and then add in a 2 extra that they're gonna do for free. No. And also one thing that they need to also be aware is there are things that will push the deadline. Maybe it's something like a minor change that does not affect the deadline and you can get it fairly quickly out. It's fine. But sometimes, because clients do not understand the difference between something taking 30 minutes and something requiring a 2-week overhaul of something that is very simple to do, right? It's just a simple change, but it's not. But yeah, we just want to add a social login. Yeah, okay, cool, but it's not 30 seconds of things to do. And yeah, what was your worst experience with having a scope creep? Where did you learn your lesson?
Oh, I learn my lesson daily. But before going into that, we had when you say, all of this is just out of communication. So when you have a scope creep, when you have, okay, but we didn't expect this. We didn't expect this, we're going to do it, but it's going to push a deadline. We didn't expect this, we're going to do it, but we need to add on another person. We didn't expect this, we can do it, but we can't do it now because the foundations for it haven't been set. We can do it in 3 weeks. But being upfront about those things and addressing them as soon as possible is your job as a person delivering a service or a company delivering a service. So it's not something that you can say, you're approaching the deadline and then you say, oh, we haven't finished these 3 features because they are scope creeps. No. The moment you learned about those 3 features, they need to be labeled either as scope creeps or they need to be labeled as, okay, something we're going to do. And also going back to trying to specify and trying to understand things in advance, in my opinion, if you skip asking reasonable questions and then people assume that something is done, sometimes you're going to have to bite the bullet and just do it for free. Like if they told you they need authentication and then you planned for authentication but didn't plan to do the I forgot my password thing, sure, it wasn't said explicitly, but authentication process, if it's an email and a password authentication, it kind of assumes it. So some sort of a forget password mechanism should be in place. You can say, yeah, we never discussed it, I'm not going to do it, but it's kind of, from my point of view, I bring the software development expertise to the table. And I've built software systems. And I know that a software system that has authentication should have forget password login. So if I haven't done it and I haven't planned for it, in my opinion, that's sort of on me. It can also be on the vendors, on the client as well, but it is sort of on me. So stuff like that, I will decide to, bite the bullet and do it on my own, just to keep good relationships. However, if they tell me, yeah, but of course that they can manipulate their to-do list, but also their spouse's to-do list, like, that's not of course. And another thing that I don't like when talking to clients is when they tell, yeah, we would just want to make it simple, we would just want to have it one button. Like, things that are really simple and that just have one button, have a team of 30 UX designers thinking about the whole thing, making it so that it can work with one button. Take the iPhone. iPhone had one button, now it has no buttons. It took a team of like 50, 100 UX designers, top UX designers in the industry, because Apple can afford them, to actually make that switch from one button to 0 buttons and make it work. It's not like, we're going to remove a button. Let's just button dot delete. Yeah, everything works. No. So like making something really simple, we just need 2 buttons. Making something work with 2 buttons is an extreme amount of work. Can you just do that? Just make it faster. That's not like, make faster. Semicolon. It's 3 months of work to make it faster.
It took them a decade to remove a button, so.
But seriously, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's actually one of my stories. We had a client, we did something that was difficult, and we started hitting web browser limitations. And the client was just like, yeah, this should be faster. And
Of course.
of
course.
It's a dumb limitation. It's not something that we can easily do. Then we started, okay, so we're not going to load the whole DOM. We're going to load something synchronously, and then we're going to load it asynchronously so that the user gets a feeling that it's faster. And indeed, it was a feeling that it was faster. And then the answer was, yeah, this is still not fast enough. And then that optimization took a while. In the end, the product is working well, and the end users are satisfied, and it's working amazingly, but we did not account for that much time when thinking about how long the project is going to take and how much it's going to cost. But as I said, sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. From each one, this is why my advice is, when you do an estimate for a project, like this is going to take 3 months, and you actually do it, end up measuring the time that it actually takes. And then once you complete the project, do a post-mortem and say, okay, we did well here. We said it's going to take 3 months. It took us 2.5. We're up by half a month. Or, shit, we said 3 months. It took us 6. Well, eek. But it's a good thing to measure, basically measure everything.
5 years ago, I worked with a guy who called this process swagging. So whenever we would work on something, he would say, we're going to swag it, which means scientific wild-ass guessing. So, and he would say like, oh, we swagged this for 3 weeks, which means we kind of did a little bit of, I think it's going to be 3 weeks. And then we started with this. He would always, he was a product owner. He would ask developers like, what do you guys think? They would say like 2 weeks tops. He was like, cool, that means 4. Okay. And then he would ask me, Tom, what do you think? Like, I was like, it takes me 5 days to design it. Right. 2 weeks for you. 4 weeks for him, I'm swagging it at 6 weeks. So something that we would agree at a table, it's 3 weeks of work. He would come to stakeholders and say it's 6. and then we would be 2 week over over the estimate because shit hits the fan. We are working on other projects. There are always stuff to do. Somebody gets sick. Like, you need to account for the human factor. Life is lifing. Things are happening, and everybody. It's easy to think with like greenfield pink glasses. Oh, it's gonna take me 37 hours if I sit down, eat just one thing, drink a glass of water, don't sleep, don't eat, don't piss, don't shit. It's 37 hours. Yes, which means it's 3 weeks of work, and nobody's a robot.
Yep. I have a nice way of calling it, but I like the swag one. I call it guesstimation. It's like an estimate with
A little bit of, yeah. How many
But I have a,
how many scoops of ice cream you can fit in an elephant's ear if a train between Vienna and Berlin is traveling 30 miles an hour and retrograde Mercury is in
wind
effect.
speed is-
Yeah, it's kind of like, put elephant.
Neptune is in the seventh house.
What is your
whatever.
star chart says for this week? And
But on the other hand, I kind of found my mechanism that sort of works. So whenever I do an estimation, and this is something that we can talk about in a specific episode, like how do you do estimates, but um I break things down into tasks, and they don't, depending on your level of experience and understanding, they can be different ways of tasking. But like, a task can be authentication system, one task. I don't know, to do items page, a second task. User administration, third task. Whatever. Depending on how granular you want to do it, depending on how experienced you are, depending on how specific you need to get it. Then for each of those, I put a minimum time and a maximum time. So authentication can take me anywhere between, I don't know, 2 man days and 4 man days, depending on what type it is. And you do that for all the tasks. Then you sum it up, you get a minimum and a maximum, and they go really wide apart. Like, you can have something take between 20 and 80 man days, and you can't go really towards a client with that. So you take the middle, plus minus 15%, because not everything is going to go wrong, and not everything is going to go right. And then after I get that number, that's the number that would take me to develop that would take my team to develop what we want to develop. However, on top of that, you're always going to have QA. And QA will take 25% of the time. 25% is a swag number, a guesstimate number, and you can put it in your Excel sheet as a parameter and then play around with it. You're going to have 25% time taken by project management, by different types of meetings, different types of scrums, different types of discussing priorities, specifics, reports, whatever. So 25% of the time will go to that. And then there's something that I introduced to myself that's kind of relevant to this topic, is I call it a safety factor, but you can call it a scope creep factor or whatever factor. It's a number that grows depending on how bad the spec is. So if somebody tells me, hey, I need an estimate on this, and gives me like 5 bullet points, then that number is going to be 4. And I'm literally going to take my estimation and divide it by 4, multiply it by 4, because I expect a shitload of scope creep to happen. If it's a really nice specification with wireframes, with user stories, with everything, then I'm going to make it 1.2 and then just take my estimate and multiply it by 1.2. But the thing is, it's never going to be 1, because I do take some time for the scope creep that is going to happen and that I am going to end up taking on. And then I get an estimate, okay, this is going to be between 60 and 90 man days. Is that something that works for you? And if it's a client that is in that ballpark, then we can talk specifics, or we can talk. But basically, that's how I do it. It's not a universal recipe, but I can do it. And I'm gonna. I don't know how we can share this, but I'll find a way to share an Excel spreadsheet that I use and that somebody else can use as well.
if it's in Google, we can just create a new copy and I will add it to.
It can become in Google, and we can share it on.
Yeah, I think it's a great approach, and it's going to be useful for people for sure. I think it's easier for designers because what we can do is we can package certain stuff. So it can be logo, branding, business cards, letterhead, whatever is a package, right? So you can. There's no scope creep there when you're buying basically a done deal, but it's not the same when you're buying a UI design, which is I don't know how many screens we have. We need to figure it out. We need to do research, user research. We need to figure out what is the best way, and sometimes it can start with 12 screens and 12-step process, and we want to reduce it to a 3-step process. How long is that going to take? Well, I don't know. We'll see. It can, how much do you want to optimize it? But we can say we're going to throw at it a 3 days of user research, 3 days of crunching the data, 3 days of this, and then in 2 weeks we're going to have like a something estimation for you. But I think this is actually a pretty cool episode, I have to say, because it's useful. It's useful, and I'm always amazed how much we actually know. I was like, oh my god, like look at this, like we know this shit, and like we got into this. Oh, what are we going to talk about? And then it's like, oh yeah, we actually did go through all of this rivers of shit to get here. It's fun.
As opposed to what we usually do, this one was actually useful.
What is your bad joke of the day?
I had one. You go, because I forgot mine.
Mine is me saying I want to go travel, and my wallet saying where to work. So that's funny because it's true.
Not funny because it's true. I don't have a bad joke for today. I'm now under pressure. Oh my god.
It's fine.
Eek.
I'm gonna let you off with a warning. I can tell one for you if you want.
No, but the bad joke for today is that actually the idea that we end up the show with bad jokes was my idea, and now I can't think of a joke.
I'll do one for you. Do you know
funny/sad?
Do you know what is Pirate's favorite content?
No.
It's webinar.
Oh my god, that's horrible.
It's horrible. Webinars. Anyway, thank you everybody.
Now I'm never gonna be able to read the word webinar without remembering
webinar.
It's always gonna be a webinar.
Good.
What are you doing today? I'm attending a webinar.
We need to do a webinar. Oh, yeah, we'll totally do a webinar. Anyway, what I wanted to say is thank you everybody for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for leaving comments. We started actually getting more and more comments recently, which is great. I love that. I love replying to those. Thank you for those. Thank you for listening. And we'll see you in the next one.
Enjoy.
Bye-bye.